Do you think the Kansas City Chiefs need to grab another wide receiver amidst the Rashee Rice situation? Well, quick way to let me know. Hit that like button. The more likes, the more I know how much Chiefs Kingdom wants a wide receiver. We got a good show on tap for you today. Let's roll into it. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on this Friday at the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. I am your host, Jace Andrews. Got a load of topics to go through here. We're going to give you an update on Rashee Rice and what exactly is going on with his situation. Plus, do the Chiefs need another wide receiver given he potentially could be suspended? Mahomes has a throwing session, and let's just say there was a receiver there that we probably should talk about. And then Louis Reese-Zammit making the roster? Well, he gave us a little bit of insight on why he chose the Chiefs and a potential for him to actually be on the 53-man roster come August. So we'll give you all of that. Let's start with the top story of the day, Rashee Rice. Now, let's kind of go through a timeline here because a lot of things have happened over the past 48 to 72 hours. So back a couple days ago, Ari had this. An arrest warrant has been issued for Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice in connection to his involvement in a multi-vehicle crash in Dallas late last month. Per WFAA, he faces 6 counts. He then obviously quote tweeted this and basically updated it, saying in total, Rashee Rice faces 8, not 6 charges in this case. 6 counts of collision involving bodily injury, 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury, and 1 count of aggravated assault. The driver of the Corvette is facing the same charges. Now, obviously then, WFAA, had this saying that it was not clear yet when Rice will be taken into custody. The Dallas Police Department typically allows a suspect a chance to turn themselves in before sending officers to arrest him, sources told WFAA, end quote. Josina Anderson then had this a little bit later saying, I'm told Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is currently planning to turn himself over to authorities in connection with active warrants for his arrest by the Dallas PD per sources. The specifics of that process are still being finalized at the time, the sources said. Now, flash forward to last night. Matt Howerton has it. Breaking, DeSoto PD releases Rashee Rice's booking photo. Again, the Kansas City Chiefs receiver is no longer in the DeSoto jail after posting a $40,000 bond. So he did turn himself in. He did get his photo taken, and he paid his bond out. And now, honestly, we just kind of sit here and wait. Josina had a little bit more on the topic, saying, told Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice has posted bond and is already released from Glen Heights Jail of Dallas, Texas, greater area. Rice now awaits the remainder of his legal processes as well as potential discipline from the NFL and or Kansas City. She said it there. It's a waiting game now. We have to just kind of see what is next because as of right now, he has 8 charges and we wait for a date for him to come in and have this kind of all taken care of in court and a lot of different things that need to go on before we push further into all of this. Now, obviously, things could happen before then on the NFL side of things. The NFL could suspend him before we get to the point of charges being actually applied. We get to the point where maybe the Chiefs, put some sort of disciplinary action before we get there. But either way, I do not think he will be playing come week 1 this year and potentially maybe the entire year. Now, obviously, in the meantime, we do have to think about, well, how is this team going to bounce back from losing their top wide receiver? And that's where Brett Veach has to come in here because he's got to start making some tough decisions. Obviously, your roster is still starting to fill up. You've still got a couple spots left on the 90-man. And I think you have to use that on some wide receivers now because if you look at this wide receiver room, getting Hollywood Brown, we thought, okay, great. You draft a wide receiver in round 1 or round 2, you're good. But now you lose Rashee Rice, in theory. So Hollywood becomes wide receiver 1, and then past that, do we really trust Kadarius Toney and Skyy Moore? Justin Watson, Justin Ross? I mean, there's just so many question marks past Hollywood, and I would argue in some ways Hollywood's a question mark, because if you think about it, he has not played a single game with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, which is something to definitely take note of. So the options are at hand here for Brett Veach. You either sign a free agent wide receiver, or you draft one, or both. What is the better option, though? Are you going to sign somebody right now to kind of have that quick fix? Or are you going to wait and draft somebody and then trust Kadarius Toney, trust Skyy Moore to stay as wide receivers 3 and 4 now, given Rashee Rice could potentially not be there? Obviously, the original thought was you're going to draft somebody, push everybody back one. So What are you doing? S for sign a free agent wide receiver. D for draft a wide receiver. The top 5 wide receiver free agents still available. Here's what I've got. Odell Beckham Jr. is probably my number 1 guy just because of his history and the upside that he brings. I think his upside is better than probably anybody on this list. Past that, Michael Gallup is really, really talented in a lot of facets, and I think he's in some ways just been a role player guy with the Cowboys, where if you put him with Patrick Mahomes, there's a potential for him to really, really break out. Tyler Boyd, again, similar type situation as Gallup, role player, but you put a decent receiver with Mahomes, turn him into great. And then Renfrow and Thomas are both ones that I would honestly maybe stay away from. However, I think that they are definitely viable options if they are the cheapest. But I'm very much clearly looking at 2 guys in this list, and only 2. I mean, it's quite frank. There's 2 guys that I think are the fit, and if you don't get them, then that kind of takes a turn. I'll tell you who those 2 guys are in just a moment. Before that, I got to tell you about one of our amazing sponsors, PrizePicks. If you want a $100 deposit match, you can go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. Now, football season, obviously, not starting up just yet. However, PrizePicks has given us a little taste of football season. They released some of their season-long totals, and man, got some good ones for you. You got Calvin Ridley, the new Tennessee Titans wide receiver. I'm going more for him on 875.5 season receiving yards. I think with Will Levis and the number 1 wide receiver being DeAndre Hopkins, it's going to be a very good situation for Ridley, who had over 1,000 yards last year with Jacksonville. And then Deontay Johnson, I think he is the opposite of Ridley in a bad situation, so I'm going to go less on his 825.5 receiving yards for the season. If you don't know what PrizePicks is, it's super easy daily fantasy sports. All you got to do, choose 2 or more players, pick more or less on their PrizePicks projections. Then you can choose flex or power play, depending on how confident you are on your picks and how much you're willing to kind of put up there. So again, I really recommend it. Check it out. They don't just have football. They've got NBA, MLB, NHL, lots of stuff going on right now in the sports world, and they've got stat types. They've got so many different ways to play. I mean, I'm telling you, I've been playing it literally every single day, and it never gets boring. Go check it out. We'll have the link in the comments and the description of this video. PrizePicks.com/CLNS, and using code CLNS, you're going to get that $100 deposit match. PrizePicks, it's daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, the first one is Tyler Boyd on that list. I think he is good fit with the Chiefs, and he's also been rumored to be, in contact with them. Obviously, solid receiver, nothing special, 840, 820, 760, 667. I think the thing that you have to take away from this, he's been consistent. And I think that overall, he's probably the best fit for me in terms of getting with the Chiefs. Why would I think that? I think he's a solid wide receiver in every single aspect. He has the speed. He has the route running. He's not great at one thing. However, there's nothing that I look at and say, yeah, I don't think he can do that. He can win a jump ball. He can do really anything you ask him to. And with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback, I see the potential there to really, really propel him to a solid year if he were to join Kansas City. Plus, his injuries, knock on wood, not really a problem with him, which is why the second guy is my second one. It's OBJ. I think his ceiling is way higher than Tyler Boyd. We've seen it, 1,000 yards back in 2019 with the Browns. However, there has been problems with injury. He's missed the entire 2022 season after tearing that ACL in the Super Bowl with the Rams. Didn't play terrible last year, 565 yards, 3 touchdowns with Lamar Jackson. So considering Zay Flowers was the number 1 wide receiver, still had over 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, and missed a couple games, played 14 though, still pretty solid numbers there. I think he'd really be a good fit as a secondary option. I just am a little worried about his injuries. And I think the thing that OBJ has is he's always been a rumor with the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you can go look online and just find countless of jersey edits of him. I mean, it's quite literally a guy that we've been talking about for probably, I want to say over 2 years at this point. I mean, you go back to the Rams Super Bowl. You think about him tearing his ACL. Obviously, he's not going to play that entire year past that. However, as soon as he was cleared to play, as soon as he was back and trying to join a team this past year, we think about it and we say, okay, what were the teams that he was looking to play with? Well, number 1 was the Ravens, but number 2 was the Chiefs, and he was talking with them and honestly, really close to joining them, I think, in a lot of aspects. But ultimately, it didn't happen. And so now, is it finally time for him to join this esteemed roster? Is it finally time for him to get to play with Patrick Mahomes? Well, only time will tell, and we'll have to see if that decision is made by Brett Veach. Let's look at the wide receiver draft targets because this is also a certain option for the Kansas City Chiefs. Brian Thomas Jr. and A.D. Mitchell are the top two that I'm looking at. Have to trade up for them most likely. Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin. All are options in pick number 32. Keon Coleman has really taken a fall from grace. He could potentially be there round 2, pick 64. Troy Franklin, probably have to get him at pick number 32. If Rashee Rice is gone and you're going to just draft somebody, I'm trading up for AD or Brian Thomas Jr. I think that's the clear number one option if you do not sign a Tyler Boyd, if you do not sign a OBJ, a Michael Thomas, a Michael Gallup. You got to get somebody if you're not going to trade up, because in my mind, I know that it's constant. Okay, we've seen what the Chiefs can do without wide receivers. They won it last year. But the pain of last year, the constant stress, the thinking, are we ever going to be able to catch a ball, is something that I don't want to experience, quite frankly, again. And I don't trust Kadarius Toney being the wide receiver number 2. I don't trust Skyy Moore being wide receiver 3. You need to have more than one person here. Or you need to get a really, really solid one with, say, Brian Thomas Jr. or A.D. Mitchell. BTJ is one that I really like, and if he does fall to around the 22-23 area, I think that's when you make the move to trade up for him. Over 1,000 yards, 17.3. He can really stretch the field. Whenever his touchdowns came, 17 of them, by the way, last year, they were a majority of the time long balls from Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels. Guess who throws a pretty good long ball? Patrick Mahomes. 5 drops, not great, not bad. Obviously, probably average for a wide receiver like him. 68 receptions, too, and catching a lot of deep routes. So it'd kind of be nice to have his mixture in there with Hollywood Brown. I ask the question now. I know I've talked about AD a lot, but let's kind of add BTJ into this and see who would you rather have. Say the Chiefs trade up for a wide receiver. Who would you want that to be? Brian Thomas Jr. or A.D. Mitchell? Let me know in the comment section by typing BTJ for Brian Thomas Jr. or A.D. for Adonai Mitchell. All right, speaking of wide receivers, there has actually been some cool things going on with those guys. Mahomes had his throwing session in the offseason that he usually has, just about a week or so away from voluntary workouts starting to happen. Had it in Texas, obviously where he resides, and got some photos from there as well. And you're going to notice in this photo, obviously Hollywood's there, but who's that? The yellow gloves. Kadarius Toney. He wasn't there 2 weeks ago in the first throwing session, but showed up this week, was there working with Patrick, and it seems as though Patrick is still kind of working on him. I mean, we've seen this team's trust with Kadarius Toney, and we know that when he has the ball in his hands, he can be electric. The problem is getting it in his hands has been a problem over the past couple of years. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I'm glad to see him working out there. Got 5 other guys that were also hanging out along with those two. Skyy Moore was there, Montrell Washington, Anthony Miller, Noah Gray, Cornell Powell, Nico Remahio. A lot of guys working out pretty much, say, over half of the wide receiver room. Wish Rashee Rice was there, but obviously, things happen. But still, pretty good amount of people working out with Patrick Mahomes, helping improve QB1 and helping improve the wide receivers around him as well. All right, Louis Reese-Zammit, the new Chiefs running back. I'm not going to call him that, though, because he's a return man. I mean, earlier this week, he got a full kind of time to talk to the media, and he actually chose the Chiefs for a specific reason. He got to say that this week. He said this, quote, "Yeah, so the plan we've got is, obviously, the new kickoff rules this year are absolutely massive. That's where my main position is going to be. So I've got to fight to be a starter in that position this year," end quote. I think that's a pretty good take there, Louis. I love that a lot because I know that it's not the same. However, the way that the kickoff is going to work this year is a little bit more similar to a rugby-style game. The kickoff is going to happen from the 35. It'll go, but you're going to have 2 lines, and they cannot move until the ball is touched. However, if it goes in the back of the end zone, it's not good for the kicking team. It's going to go to the 30-yard line, where if it rolls in, it's going to go to the 20-yard line. So therefore, you really want to try and make some more returns here. So I think Louis could be perfect for this. Obviously, have to wait and see, and he knows his goal. He wants to be the starter on the kick return, and that's why he chose the Chiefs over the Browns and the Jets and other teams who had visited with him. The Chiefs had a clear plan in place, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see what we can have from him. Obviously, it's going to be a learning experience for everybody, but in some ways, if Louis already thinking about that and we get to that point in the season or in the year where we're trying to pick a return man and he's like, I've been training for this. This is my job. I like the odds of him doing something special on the field this year. So excited to see that happening, and hopefully he is on the 53-man roster. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping you also subscribe as well, because if you made it to the end of the video, well, then you must have liked something. So you see it flashing in there. YouTube.com/ChiefsTV. Don't miss us. We're putting out Chiefs content every single day. Promise you, you will not regret it. So just subscribe to us. Hey, do it for a couple days. You don't like it, unsubscribe. If you love it, guess what? It's free, and you get to stay. We really appreciate you, all of Chiefs Kingdom, hanging out with us on this Friday. Have an amazing weekend. We will see you tomorrow. But for now, peace out.